and he heard of an opportunity to work and to get some money so that he could provide for his family. At that time, China was poverty-stricken, so the opportunity was fantastic. He went to Hong Kong and he signed up as one of about 150,000 Chinese labourers to go to the Western Front and to help with the Allied war effort.
And it was a story that you didn't know much about. You heard this via your father, but it's something you didn't know much about.
I didn't know much about it. I knew a little bit from a piece that my father wrote around 20 years ago when he was writing a piece for Gloucestershire County Council about how BME communities came to be in Gloucestershire. And so there was a small paragraph on my grandfather and how he'd come over in 1916 and he had helped to fill in bomb craters during World War I. And that was news to me. I thought, wow, this is interesting.
And there are so many stories, Frances, like Karen's, that haven't been told. Or Karen's
Absolutely.
grandfather's, I should say.
Yes, absolutely. And I think Karen's is very unusual because, you know, here she is and she can tell us. Whereas most of the labourers went straight back to China. They were shipped back to China and just disappeared again into their villages and so on. But it's really nice to be able to hear one.
Why is it a story that's not been told previously? Is it because there's the sparsity of information? Is it literally that it's harder? Because we were seeing some wonderful images there that clearly have come from somewhere. There are archives around.
Sources are different. I mean, a lot of the photographs come often from British officers and missionaries who worked as interpreters with the Chinese Labour Corps. The Labour Corps themselves, they were mostly illiterate peasants, and so they were sent back to their home villages in 1920 at the end of the war, and their stories were largely lost.
So, Karen, how did you become involved with the documentary?
Well, it started a while ago. I joined Twitter and I found an account on there that was called the Ensuring We Remember campaign, and it was all about erecting a permanent memorial for the Chinese Labour Corps in England, because currently out of around 60,000 war memorials, there's not one that acknowledges the Chinese Labour Corps at all. So I found this account, I was amazed by it, and I tweeted a comment just saying, I wish you success with this campaign, what a fantastic campaign, and the reason why I'm contacting you is because I have a personal connection, which is my grandfather.
Well, as you're speaking there, as I look at some of those images, I'm thinking this must have been quite an emotional journey for you, because, you know, what he went through and the conditions they had to work in, I mean, it has that element to it, doesn't it?
Well, making the documentary opened up a whole new world of what my grandfather had actually gone through. Now, I was still a child when my grandfather passed away in 1980, so the only stories and he never spoke about this time to me or to any other grandchildren. He spoke a little bit about his time in the war to my father, but when I went to France and I looked at you know, the contract and where he'd possibly been and what he was faced with, I suddenly became immensely proud of him, but also it broke my heart to think of what he went through. So it was emotional, yes.
You're laying a wreath for him at the cenotaph.
Yes, that's right, yes. Yes, I'm really honoured to be laying a wreath on behalf of the Chinese Labour Corps on Saturday morning at the cenotaph.
And Frances, it's so important that these stories get heard, isn't it?
I think it is, because, you know, it was a world war and we forget about the contribution of other countries. China had been trying to help the Allies right from the very, very beginning of the war, and it was only in 1916-17, when the labourers were recruited, that the Chinese were able to send people to help. Unfortunately, because China was officially neutral, it had to be as a kind of contract for coolie labour, and so it has a slight sort of taint of the 19th century past.
Well, Frances, thank you so much. And Karen, thank you for sharing your story with us this morning.
Thank you.
You can learn more about it as well. Britain's Forgotten Armies on Channel 4, Sunday night at 7 p.m.
That's all from us today. Back tomorrow, of course.